That game was so lopsided, I don't think anybody was expecting. I will say this. It was fun to watch the Kansas City Chiefs go down in flames. No jumping for joy of Taylor Swift in the press box. Nobody else in the press box. I'm talking about, I don't know, Ryan Reynolds or his wife or anybody jumping for joy because the Chiefs were not winning. There was no Donald Trump. I mean, Donald Trump was there, but we didn't see a lot of the camera on top of him. There was just all-American beatdown by the Philadelphia Eagles. And I will say this, everything that we watched on Sunday night was definitely a big-time punch in the ref's face and the NFL's face. And I'll tell you why. When I watched that game, especially in the first quarter, there were a lot of questionable calls, especially the referee calls. Obviously, from the Philadelphia getting that call, that offensive passing interference that I remember. And the Kansas City Chiefs looked like everything was going their way early in the game, but it didn't. And I thought watching that game, it told me one thing and one thing only, that the Eagles were the better team automatically going into that game. Now, we interviewed a lot of people at the, Radio Row, and a lot of people had questions what Eagle team was going to show up and what Kansas City Chief team was going to show up as far as their coaching. If you know the story, if you look at Andy Reid's career, usually every time he gets the ball in the first quarter, especially the first time he touches the ball, they usually score or kick a field goal. Well, on Sunday night, they didn't. As a matter of fact, they didn't score until the third quarter. They got shut out in the first half. They completely got, I believe, disposed of. And I look at many different things, and everybody says, what made the Eagles just dominate that game? And everybody's going to say defense wins championships. And Saquon Barkley didn't have one of those good games. And that's because what the Kansas City Chiefs did and what Spagnuolo did is he took Saquon out. And he wanted the other players to beat him. They wanted A.J. Brown to beat him. They wanted Devontae Smith beating him or Dallas Goedert. But the guy that really beat them was Jalen Hurts. That's who beat them. Jalen Hurts stood in the pocket. The offensive line protected him so very well. And when he needed to get out of the pocket and make a play, he absolutely did. Jalen Hurts, to me, completely outplayed Patrick Mahomes. But if you go back in time a couple of years ago when the Kansas City Chiefs beat the Eagles in the Super Bowl, and if you remember, I believe Jalen Hurts was playing better than Patrick Mahomes. If you look at the numbers, they're not far apart from one another. And Jalen Hurts in the big game over the last few years, and especially, they haven't been in the Super Bowl since then, but when the Eagles needed to make a play, Jalen Hurts had a big part of those plays. Now, I watched the game, and I do believe it was complete dominance. They couldn't stop Jalen Carter. Jalen Carter was absolutely dominating the line of scrimmage, and they were double and triple teaming him. And what did that do? It opened up the edges. It opened up Josh Sweat. It opened up Milton Williams, and they completely caused havoc. And the secondary of the Philadelphia Eagles, Jajon and Mitchell, and then Slay, everybody was on it. They were on the ball. They were ball hawks throughout the game. It was sensational to watch. It really was. And Patrick Mahomes, as soon as he got hit early in the first quarter, you can tell and you can see it in his face that he was scared. You saw it in his face that every time he stepped into the pocket, there was an eagle or two eagles or three eagles. And that's what was so amazing. You bring up, obviously, the blitz packages that we've seen, obviously, Fangio do for many, many years. He likes the blitz. And if you look at the Eagles all season long, Fangio did not blitz as much as he used to do with the Broncos, what he did with Chicago. He was more of a guy that would brush four guys and make the linebackers step back, use them in the open field, use them to protect, obviously, the tight ends. It was fun to watch. Fangio was between Andy Reid and Fangio outsmarted the great Andy Reid. Andy Reid had no answers for Vic Fangio's defense. And what I loved about what Fangio did in the game is if you watch the game plan in the first half, it was completely different in the second half. And I I just don't know if Patrick Mahomes was comfortable at any point of the game. The only time he was comfortable when the game was over. The last 7-8 minutes of the game when the Eagles decided not to play their starters, to take their starters out. They took Durant out. They took Mitchell out. They took Jalen Hurts out in the last 5 minutes of the game because the game was over. Patrick Mahomes was uncomfortable. I don't think I've ever seen a game that Patrick Mahomes looked as bad as he has. He has not looked as bad in a playoff game that I've ever seen. He was horrible. He didn't look like a starting quarterback in the NFL, and it just seemed like his head was not fully in the game. Now, I don't know what the Kansas City Chiefs were thinking. I don't know if they thought that this was going to just completely be a complete domination of what we've seen over the last couple of years. The Kansas City Chiefs always get the calls. The refs give them all these calls. It didn't happen in this game. After the first quarter, and people were booing the referees on some of the more questionable calls, it really, every single call started to sway on the Eagles side. And the Kansas City Chiefs were getting frustrated because you were seeing McDuffie make terrible plays in the open field and terrible penalty calls on him. We've seen Jones. Jones got hurt early in the game. I don't think he was himself throughout the game after he got hurt with his neck situation. There was just a lot of misjudging plays that we watched throughout the game that you can question the Kansas City Chiefs. And Spagnuolo, who is a great game planner, he is one of the best when it comes defensively. He had no answers for Jalen Hurts. None. They had an answer for Saquon. They had no answers for A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. But the guy that they just kept, every time he moved out of the pocket and he needed to make a play with his legs, he did it. Jalen Hurts made every play with his legs. He had 72 rushing yards and a touchdown. He completely dominated on the run. And they didn't need Saquon Barkley if he was getting, he was getting open runs and open looks in the open field. It was incredible. It really was. And unfortunately, Travis Kelce looked old. I don't know if anybody watched the game. Travis Kelce looked like a deer in the headlights. He had no idea what was going on the football field. You saw Patrick Mahomes and him talking on the sidelines. We saw Hopkins. How many times have you seen a guy like Hopkins, one of the best ball hawks we've seen in the last 10 years as a wide receiver, not catch the ball, drop the ball as much as he did? Juju Smith-Schuster, after the first quarter, he was a no-show. Brown, Hollywood Brown that everybody was talking about. What an addition in the offseason. Where was he? I think he had 1 or 2 catches the whole game. Nobody was getting open. And I'm going to tell you this right now. At some points, Kansas City had some open guys. You watch the open field. I was just so shocked that Patrick Mahomes was so scared. He was trying to get rid of the ball as quick as he can. He couldn't see it. And every time there was a lane, there was an Eagle hand up. I mean, it was unbelievable. It was such a good game plan by Vic Fangio. And I believe the MVP of that game was Vic Fangio. The way he structured his defense throughout the game to put pressure, Dijon, putting him in space, making sure that his strengths and Dijon's strengths throughout college and so far early in his NFL career is putting him in the open field and letting him make plays. And he reminds me a lot like somebody that we've seen in the Super Bowl before. So I just, you know who he reminds me of, by the way, Speedy? Jim Leonard. Remember Jim Leonard?
Yeah.
He reminds me a lot like a young Jim Leonard, just a little bit better. And a lot faster. He's that kind of player. I was shocked. I was shocked that this was a complete blowout as quick as it was. At one point, it was 27-0? Mm-hmm. It was just embarrassing. As a matter of fact, it was the second highest lead in NFL history after our first half, right behind the Washington game. If you remember that, it was 24-0. The highest score in a half was 25-0. And everybody, going into the second half, I thought, hey, this could be another Patriot game. Remember that against the Atlanta Falcons?
I saw that on Twitter a lot.
It popped in my head.
The Chiefs are down 10. They're going to come back again.
It popped in my head. I thought it was going to happen. Atlanta, I remember it. Atlanta Falcons, I think at one point going into the fourth quarter was up 27-3. And I remember it. And all of a sudden, everything started to fall apart. And I was telling Brittany, I was like, I'm not going to be surprised if somehow you see something shocking happen early in the fourth quarter and Kansas City makes a run. And she says, I hope not. But It was just incredible. It really was fun to watch. Watching a team like the Kansas City Chiefs completely not know what to do, or they had no answer for anybody on the football field. McDuffie, who was one of the best, I believe, slot corners, outside corners we've seen in a very long time, over the last 5 seasons, over the last 6 years, he just did not have a good game. He just couldn't stop anybody. You put him on Devontae Adams, he couldn't stop Devontae Adams. You put him on A.J. Brown, he couldn't stop A.J. Brown. It was just an absolute onslaught. I loved it, and I loved watching the Philadelphia Eagles owner, yes, raise that Lombardi trophy and really put the smiles on. This is the second championship for the Philadelphia Eagles in 5 years. Congratulations to the Philadelphia Eagles.
Vic Fangio, when he was with the Broncos, even though the Broncos had a bad losing streak against the Chiefs, they've always done well against that level of offense. Now, you're right. They had to change a bunch of things from Denver that didn't have the same level of pass rush outside of Von Miller to now this Eagles team that has a loaded amount of pass rush. And as a result, they did not blitz at all. That is an insane stat. 39 times they had a 4-man rush and 3 times they had a 3-man rush, and they got that kind of pressure. I knew the Chiefs tackles have been a problem all year. That's why I thought Buffalo was going to beat them, because they had that edge rush too. But the Chiefs took advantage of them against Buffalo, but not the same case with Josh Sweat, who's been underrated for a while. He didn't get as much attention because of all those Georgia players, all those Hassan Reddicks in the past that got a lot of attention. But Sweat's been very good for a while, and they just kept pouring it on. You mentioned the Cooper DeJean effect, the versatility. The Eagles have not had a defender like this, because they've had a lot of corners that have been good, but not a defensive hybrid type player like DeJean that is great for those types of coverage disguises. On that interception, he looked like he was going for the comeback route, and then he disguised himself back to the middle of the field to get that interception. And Zach Bond did the same kind of thing. It looked like he was blitzing, drops back, gets an interception that way as well. And Vic Fangio, in addition to the not blitzing, did an amazing job with that. And on offense, you mentioned Steve Spagnuolo getting fooled. The last time the Chiefs lost in the playoffs was to the Bengals, and because Jamar Chase went off on the Chiefs in the past, he overcompensated for Jamar Chase, and everyone else went off, Mixon, T. Higgins, etc. They overcompensated for Saquon Barkley, and they had a good counter game plan for that. Jalen Hurts mainly running was the big thing, but they spread the ball around so very well. Goddard had that big catch. Devontae Smith had some big catches, and they never kept it easy for somebody like Spagnuolo.
And Spagnuolo took out Saquon Barkley.
Right.
And we knew that he was going to take out the biggest option, who's been a complete dominant factor for the Philadelphia Eagles. And as soon as they took him out, they thought that they had him, that they thought, hey, you know what? They can't run the ball. They're going to be one-dimensional. What they weren't. They used Jalen Hurts' legs. And how many times did we see them go on 4th and 2, 4th and 3? They made sure that they kept Patrick Mahomes off the field. As a matter of fact, how many times did Patrick Mahomes touch the ball? Really, until the mid-second half. He touched the ball once. All the way, they dominated the ball in the first half. I think they had the ball for 5 minutes in the first quarter. It was an absolute onslaught. It was so fun to watch, and it was so personally game plan. And I have to give, and we give Fangio all the credit. How about the head coach, man? How about him? Well, he's sitting over there, and everybody thought he was going to be outplayed, outcoached by Andy Reid. He wasn't. He was very steady. I saw A.J. Brown a couple of times go on the sidelines and yelling at him and doing things on the sidelines. He kept composed. He kept his team calm. And you saw the dominant fashion that he wanted his team to play. It was dominating fashion. And that it says a lot by who threw the Gatorade on him. It was A.J. Brown and Darius Slay, the two guys that has had problems with him over the last 2 years.
Kevin Fitz in the comment section, was great to see what the team actually plays like when they're not getting propped up by the refs. I don't think the refs could have even saved them in that game, because they were just getting dominated on all levels too. And sometimes you see a lot of these coaches, when their star player gets taken out, not have a good game plan, panic, adjust, not well. And Sirianni did a great job, and I think Jalen Hurts' improvisation did very well adjusting to that. And again, it wasn't one obvious guy at wide receiver. That's why Jalen Hurts won MVP, because you could say Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown on these big games, but they also got Goddard involved. They got Grant Calcaterra involved for catch. Jahan Dotson had a couple of big plays in the first quarter. So they were making sure that the Chiefs did not have one set game plan for anyone in the passing game when they had in it for Saquon, because like you were talking about, Trent McDuffie can only guard one guy, and even
he didn't play well.
And even he had some holding and pass interference calls. So they had to adjust to that. And as a result of that, none of the other Chiefs defenders, probably outside of Brian Cook, who had the pick, and then Nick Bolton, who was very good as a tackling linebacker, nobody else played well in that defense.
It was so surprising. I was so shocked by the way they just had that game plan. And honestly, Kansas City, Pacheco couldn't run the ball. We didn't see Hunt much. They couldn't run the ball. They fell behind so much. They had no running game. And I really thought the way they should have gotten their offense working more in the second half is run the ball, because Philadelphia over the last couple of weeks has had problems stopping the run against certain teams. I mean, and even against Washington, they couldn't, even though they knocked the ball a couple of times out of Eckler's hands and some of the running backs, they had problems stopping the run when they moved into that second range. I was very shocked that even being down 27-0, they didn't run the ball a little bit more and get them off. I think off their what do they say that?
Out of
rhythm, or just off balance. They didn't do that, and I think Philadelphia understood that they were going to throw the ball, and Patrick Mahomes was going to force the ball into pockets and in places that he was uncomfortable doing.
And they also stayed aggressive, even up 27-0 too, which is not something you see a lot of teams do. And we always talk about it when you're playing against these quote unquote dynasties, especially against the Patriots too. Like, stay aggressive, don't let them get back into the game type thing. And the Eagles kept doing that with shot plays, like you said, going for it on 4th down and 3 a lot of the time. And Nick Sirianni had to commit to that kind of aggression.
He's been doing it all year,
and that is a good sign for the Eagles not to like let them back in the game, because again, the Chiefs offense could have gotten it going at any time, or the Chiefs defense could have gotten a turnover to get it going at any time, and then all of a sudden you're looking at what you described, that Patriots scenario is going to loom on these players, and it's a very young team. So
it was never going to happen. You knew that it wasn't going to happen
either,
because every time they took the ball, every time Kansas City looked like they had some kind of confidence, Philadelphia took the ball right down the field and got a field goal. And by the way, what about their kicker? How about that? I mean, he kicked a 50-yard field goal, 48-yard field goal. He didn't miss one field goal, and he's had problems kicking the ball all season long. And then all of a sudden in the Super Bowl, he couldn't miss. He couldn't miss. It was so fun to watch. And looking at Patrick Mahomes' face at the end of the game, that was so fun to watch. It really was. And I'm not taking shots at Patrick Mahomes. We're going to see Patrick Mahomes there again. I'm sure we will. It's just exciting to watch the Kansas City Chiefs fall flat on their faces, and no referees, nobody making excuses for them.
Nobody can say save them for how bad the tackle positions are on that team. Maybe we'll offer you Evan Neal. You can rebirth him.
I think overall, they looked out of whack. Like, they just looked unsettled. Obviously, the game's not too big for them. They've been there plenty, but I think it just shows to how deep the Eagles are. Like, Saquon didn't even have 100 total yards. I think he ended up with like 97 rushing and receiving. But they're so deep in the game plan that they knew that they were going to try and take him away. They're like, all right, he's not going to beat us. Okay, well, that's fine. We have plenty other cards in our deck that we can go to. And obviously, Jalen and doing the things that he did with his feet. And he's a big dude. He's no small man to take down. And, just to see him go and basically spread the ball around to all those guys. And, guys came up with big plays at big times. And, I think that just goes to the selflessness of guys knowing that, yeah, Saquon's that dude. But you know what? If one of those games come where, they're locking him up and doing whatever, we have to step up and do that. And they obviously showed it with all those guys doing that, and then defense just being everywhere. I mean, it's like they're like little gnats, and I know about those things. So they were everywhere, and it was fun. It was fun to see them all over the field, back and forth, and just the game plan and how they switched it up. And they were never, there was never one time you're like, okay, they're going to fall into this, and they kept switching it up, and it felt like the opposite way around with Andy Reid. Usually he's playing checkers, chess, and the other playing checkers. It felt like it was the other way around. And I think they started to force stuff when it got out of hand. But knowing the Chiefs and what they are, it's still scary sometimes. You're like, all right, like you said, Speedy, that one interception or that one big play, now you're like, all right, here they come. What's going to happen now? There's going to be a doink kick, or there's going to be a block punt or something. So it was a fun game to watch, even though, like, at first I was just kind of shaking my head because I was like, holy cow, it's 24-0 and it's halftime. Like, what just happened?
And also, if you watch Patrick Mahomes' numbers going into the fourth quarter, I think he only had like 120 yards. It was really this. It was the fourth quarter where he got all the yards. That's because the last 7-8 minutes of the game, the Philadelphia Eagles took all their starters out.
Garbage time savior worthy.
It was completely dominant. I think Patrick Mahomes is his 2 times down in the fourth quarter. I think he threw about 100 yards in the fourth quarter, 120 yards in the fourth quarter.
Xavier Worthy was the leading receiver in this game with garbage time 157 yards.
I think if you look at the numbers, I think Patrick Mahomes only had 50 or 60 yards thrown in the first half. Just think about that. Patrick Mahomes only had 50 or 60 yards thrown in the first half. That is just absolutely amazing. And that tells you how good Vic Fangio's defense was throughout the game. It was just complete annihilation. They kept putting pressure after pressure after pressure on Patrick Mahomes. And nobody, and did you watch the Chiefs? At one point, they brought in 2 running backs to help block, and they still couldn't block them. It was unbelievable. Jalen Carter is a beast. I don't care. I'll take back whatever I said about this kid. This kid is fantastic to watch. It's just amazing. And then after the play, he's talking crap. You see him talking to Patrick Mahomes. You see him talking to all the offensive linemen. And by the way, what happened to the Kansas City Chiefs offensive line? I mean, everybody was talking how great this offensive line has been all season long, how great they are protecting Patrick Mahomes. They couldn't do anything against this front 4. And at one point, front 5. It was just complete annihilation. How about Graham? This could be his final year as an NFL player. Watch out. If you watch him, he was all over the place throughout the game. It was like he was resurrected. I mean, this guy is what? In football years, he's got to be about 60 years old, and he was all over the freaking field. It's just so fun to watch. I have not seen the Kansas City Chiefs just completely out of sync throughout the game. It's just absolutely remarkable. I really loved to watch it. And by the way, the only person that was seeing red at the end of the game was Patrick Mahomes, because the only thing he's going to be seeing is a bull's ass, because he's going to have no trophy or whatever, his 3rd trophy in a row. And we're not going to see a three-peat, and we're not going to be talking about that anymore, because we're never going to see that. And if we do see it, it won't be anytime soon. That's for sure.
You think Kelsey's done?
No. He came out and said at the end of the game when they interviewed him, somebody said that, "Are you done?" And he says, "I plan to play next year." So Kelsey signed a 2-year deal. I expect him to show back to a training camp in the offseason. But, dude, if you look at Travis Kelce, he's out of shape, one. We've seen it all season. You could see it in it. He's got heavier. Last year, when he started dating Taylor Swift throughout the playoffs and everybody was talking about it, he was a lot thinner. You could see it. He's not the same player he was 2 or 3 years ago. And obviously because of age, but maybe he's just getting more comfortable thinking about getting married and settling down, either with Taylor or with somebody else. And he's got a podcast that just got $100 million contract from his sponsor. I don't know who it was. It was FanDuel and somebody else that gave him $100 million. So does he really need to play football anymore? No, he loves the game. I just don't think he's the same player he once was. And I think it has a lot to do because he wants to settle down. He wants to move on with his career. But I expect Travis Kelce to be back next year.
And Kelsey was a game breaker just a couple of years ago. They were if you go back to that first Chiefs championship team before the back-to-back, they had Hill taking the top off the defense, Tyreek Hill taking the top off the defense, and Travis Kelce being able to get open on everything underneath. Fast forward to today, they tried to recreate that with Xavier Worthy, except guess what? Travis Kelce can't get open underneath anymore. So he wasn't open all game. DeAndre Hopkins was always a possession guy, and now he doesn't have the hands anymore, so he's kind of useless out there. Hollywood Brown, Errol, we talked about all year. He's
horrible.
A pretender.
Horrible.
Pretender. That team was not very good compared roster-wise, talent-wise to this Eagles team. That Eagles team has great players all littered throughout it. A bunch of Hall of Fame talent type guys, if their careers keep going in this trajectory, some that are already going to be there. This is a really, really great team. One of these all-time great performances by this, my dreaded, hated Eagles which, as you know, while we were in New Orleans, all these Eagle fans, Joba, if you haven't heard this
By
yet.
the way, you were in New Orleans and everybody was asking, who do you have? I can't say. I don't want to see the Eagles win. You want to see Kansas City win? You want to see the referees hoist that trophy? Because that's what would have happened. Because if Kansas City would have won that game, it would have only been because that the referees giving them all the calls. Because I thought it was going to happen early in the game, especially in the first quarter with some of those questionable calls. I was like, what? And by the way, and you mentioned Travis Kelce and Xavier Worthy. Xavier Worthy didn't wake up until the fourth quarter. He did not wake up until the fourth quarter. When the Eagles decided to take Deshaun out and Mitchell out, that was when Xavier Worthy went crazy and he had those 2 touchdowns. So everybody keeps saying,
biggest thing about this game, though, wasn't even that. That was the thing that compounded the mistakes. The thing that was the worst part of this game, you guys have been talking about it, but I want to get into some of the nitty-gritty, like, defensive coordinator stuff with the line. The line, if you can get everyone and get pressure with 3 or 4 guys, now you're dropping 7 and 8 in coverage. And a guy like Fangio, who normally blitzes, probably man blitzes a lot, he decided to get far away from his normal type of situation. What did he do? He dropped everybody in different patterns throughout the game to confuse Mahomes. Mahomes had no idea where these underneath defenders were. DeJean, Vaughn, he couldn't figure it out. It was that good because if you have 3 guys getting home, and let's face it, the only bet that I made that was actually paying off because I put too much money on Saquon. I should have been stupid, because I knew they were going to try to shut him down, and yet I just thought they wouldn't. But that's what they did. They shut him down and could shut anyone else down. What they didn't do, the Eagles line, was have to bring anybody else. So what do we got? Joe Tooney, left guard, all pro, going up against Josh Sweat. I bet Sweat 2+ sacks as soon as I saw that. It doesn't matter that Tooney was capable of doing it against the Bills. This is a different story. Josh Sweat is a real deal pass rusher, and he wreaked havoc. And then you had Jalen Carter demanding 2 guys on you on the inside at all times. And then you have a variety of guys that they rotated in with Nolan Smith and their other linemen. Even though as we were doing our ice shaker challenges, none of these great Eagle fans knew who any of the players on their line were, that they love their team so much. They were hugging me because saying thank you for Saquon. That's how bad it got, Giants fans. That's what it was like during this week for me, wearing Giants gear. But I wore it every day, and that's who I am. But that's a whole nother story. The line was the story of this game.
It was.
The defensive line won the game for them.
It was, and it was the battle of the trenches. You had the offensive line that was dominating by the Eagles, which has been one of the best offensive lines in football, and the defensive line, which has been number 1 really throughout the season as well. Vic Fangio, just think, if you look at the numbers, they were ranked in almost 30th or 29th in every statistic defensively last year. They made, 3 moves? They added Mitchell, DeJean, Vic Fangio, and Braun, and then all of a sudden, they had the number 1 defense in almost every single statistic. Just imagine. I mean, when did we actually see a team go from one of the worst to the best in the NFL as quick as they did? It's amazing. And you have to give Nick Sirianni a lot of that credit, because for all the things that we heard throughout the offseason is he should be fired, he has no control, he has nothing. He's dealt with A.J. Brown all season long in the Jalen Hurts thing. Then there were other players. Darius Slay was talking crap in the middle of the season. And then who was hugging him after he had the Gatorade wash? It was Darius Slay and A.J. Brown. Very well deserved. I honestly, I got to give Nick Fangio, I got to give Nick Sirianni a lot of credit because Nick Sirianni has been absolutely killed all over social media. Absolutely killed all over social media. And for what he has done throughout the playoffs and throughout the second half of the season is absolutely remarkable. To me, the MVP of the Philadelphia Eagles throughout the season, not the playoffs and not the Super Bowl, was Nick Sirianni. I think he's been sensational. He outcoached Andy Reid.
Just a couple of thoughts on the backtrack of Nick Sirianni. What a hell of a job he did this year with that team. We came on here week after week after week, and we're like, if he doesn't do this, he's going to get fired. If he doesn't do this, he's going to get fired. If he doesn't do that, he's going to get fired. And all he did was take all the stories, all the backlash, and I think he's put it on his shoulders like, be mad at me, be mad at me. And watched the greatness of this team just happen, and nobody was paying attention to how good the actual Eagles were. So I think he did a hell of a job. He deserves his flowers. Good for him. As far as the Chiefs go, I think what everybody's missing talking about is I think Andy Reid kind of wanted to be this legacy game for Travis Kelce and Mahomes. They wanted Mahomes to go out there, throw for 450 yards, have 4 touchdowns, lead him to a three-peat. He's better than Tom Brady. Travis Kelce has like 2 of those touchdowns. He's got all the playoff records, and they wanted to be this big legacy game. They didn't run the ball. What do you do against a 4-man front when you can't have anything go else right? You run it right at them.
Said it.
They said they abandoned it, and they're like, we're going to throw these short screens. No, that's not going to work. Run the ball up the middle with Pacheco, who's a power runner. He could probably get 6 yards of carry every time he wanted to, and they just abandoned it. It was bad coaching. It was bad. Everything about it was bad. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes got shook after the first drive, and he's like, who the hell are we playing? Because I haven't seen anything like this. But I think the game plan was to just have Patrick Mahomes have this legacy game with Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce retires. Andy Reid retires. Patrick Mahomes is going forward as the best quarterback, and that's how they game plan for the 2 weeks. And nobody talked about that, but I really think that's what happened. And then they got punched in the mouth, and they had no other plans.
And they also, when you see a team that adopts a lot of the similar concepts, even when the Eagles beat the Chiefs in the regular season in 2023, the offense still did very well in that game. And obviously in the Super Bowl 2 years ago, they scored 38 points. And I think Andy Reid still wanted to go to a lot of those concepts. Maybe thought they could with just better wide receivers, because the Chiefs were dominating the Eagles in that game 2 years ago with Sky Moore and Kadarius Toney, like doing a lot of the work, Justin Watson, like all these random receivers. Like it wasn't like Kelce did well, but it wasn't like they had these lit up receiving core since Tyreek Hill was there. So they thought, okay, maybe they just could trust the stars. Errol was talking about Hopkins normally doing well, but not showing up in this game. And Xavier Worthy.
They're old. I mean, look at their team. Look at Kansas City. Juju Smith-Schuster. He's an older wide receiver. DeAndre Hopkins. He's an older wide receiver. Travis Kelce. He's an older wide receiver tight end. Kareem Hunt, older running back. If you go up and down this roster, they're an older roster. The Eagles are a young roster, up-and-coming roster. They got a ton of young guys. Jalen Hurts is what, 28, 29? He's in the prime of his career. This is a young, talented roster. Kansas City, this is going to be the tail end. I don't know how much time they have left.
Well, yeah, it's a younger roster on defense, but offensively, yeah, it's very old. Now, Xavier Worthy is really the only young guy you could really trust.
I mean,
Fish, did you say Hurts is only 26?
Hurts is only 26 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So there's one other thing that I talked to a couple of guys I coach football with that were apoplectic at the Chiefs' game plan on offense.
What word?
Apoplectic, apocalypse.
Oh,
apoplectic.
No, you should have heard the words he was using.
In case you were wondering if I was an AP history
it was
teacher.
a dictionary.
Good night.
Well, put everyone to bed a little later. But I'll tell you what. If you have pressure up the middle, and look, if you ever coach like a shitty team, I've had only great teams if you were watching some of my former players. But if you're ever coaching a team that just didn't have the talent on the offensive line, you come up with creative ways to get the ball off. And there's 2 ways that coaches usually do this. One, it's roll out the quarterback. So he throws the ball from a different platform, because clearly dropping back in a pocket is not working. So you only play half field games, kind of what they do in college with, spread quarterbacks. They only read half the field, and they'll roll them sometimes and set up over the tackle or do half rolls. That's one thing that they should have done, or at least tried to play around with. I understand the horizontal screen game, Owen, is not really something that you like watching because it looks like gains of 0 and gains of 1, or it could be like a fumble back behind the line lateral. But that's what teams do if they can't run the ball. Pacheco's coming back from a broken leg. I guess they didn't trust his leg. Can't explain it any other way, unless they just really screwed that up and they were just, like you said, shook. But the biggest one that makes no sense, and we watched the Giants do this even with crummy quarterbacks like Daniel Jones over the years. High tempo. Go no huddle. Don't let them get off the field.
They tried that in the second quarter.
No.
They tried to do that. They
didn't get any first downs.
No.
They never got any first downs in the first half. They got 1 the whole first half.
They were trying to do that in the second
You
quarter.
well, that's the thing. You can't do it if you don't get a first down.
Exactly. They tried to do that. They even went on in the third quarter when they tried to do that again. They went on a fourth down. They were trying to push the ball down the field. They couldn't get it.
I'm not saying like going on fourth down. I mean like
I got it.
What
Rush the play, get to the line of scrimmage, and
don't allow substitutions on that Fangio
They
defense.
did. They tried to do that in the second quarter. It didn't work. Vic Fangio had the best game plan. He really did. It was fantastic. Dude, Vic Fangio outsmarted probably one of the greatest offensive minds the NFL has ever had in Andy Reid. Andy Reid was on the sidelines. His hands were on his head. His pad was thrown on the ground. I've never seen Andy Reid get so frustrated that he slammed his pad on the ground. He went to his team. He went to Kelsey and Patrick Mahomes and huddled with them. He had no idea what was going on. They were shocked. They were absolutely smart.
Like Dable throwing the tablet.
Oh my
God! He was really worried he was going to get tackled by Kelsey again this year. So he's like, "Get me out of the way,
dude!
I can't figure this out."
I have never seen Andy Reid so flabbergasted throughout a game like I saw him on Sunday. I have never seen him like that. He was shocked. And Vic, and again, I think the MVP should go to Fangio for that game, but throughout the season, it should go to Nick Sirianni. I think the coaching was fantastic throughout the season from both guys. And even, I give a credit, Kellen Moore, who loved to throw the ball for all those years he was with the Dallas Cowboys, and when he went to the LA Chargers last year, and people were questioning him and his offensive mind. He goes over there to the Philadelphia Eagles after he got let go, and he completely changed his game plan. He ran the ball, and you saw the difference. It opened up the passing lanes. He was the coaching staff was sensational throughout the season. And again, it goes all the way from up top. I mean, ownership and obviously the GM, who I believe is the best GM in all of football. I don't think you can argue that anymore when you've seen what Philadelphia did in the offseason, adding Braun and Dijon and Mitchell, and then bringing in Vic Fangio. I mean, arguably the greatest offseason we've seen a GM ever have. It was just fun to watch. It wasn't even chess. It wasn't checkers. It was Monopoly. That's what it was. And guess who was getting all the money? It was the Philadelphia Eagles. They were winning and stealing all the money. And they were robbing Patrick Mahomes. I think Patrick Mahomes, lost his way. Or what do you play, with the car or something like that? What do you use on Monopoly? I haven't played Monopoly in a long time.
There's all kinds of pieces. The best word is the thimble, though.
No, there it is. Maybe it was the
I go hat. I'm a hat guy.
All right, he's a hat guy. You're a thimble guy. What were you?
Fish. See, against the Bills, they had 135 yards rushing, and Hunt had a TD. How do you just get 6 carries for 16 yards and just abandon the run? Like Manny came out with that stat saying they ran the ball for 135 yards. If they would have done that the first couple series and just run the ball, at least slow the game down. They're getting punched in the mouth. Do you only give your 2 running backs 6 carries total?
So this was always a criticism of Andy Reid when he was an Eagles coach, if you go back in time, where he had guys like Brian Westbrook, who were great running backs, but he wanted to utilize them more in a passing game. The Giants did it with Tiki Barber to a similar extent. Tiki was great in the screen game. And and Reid never really wanted to run the ball. He never gave all that many carries. And some people thought it was to try to protect his running backs. That might have had some truth to it. But if you look at it now, he kind of fell back into that same situation. Yeah. What I saw as a coach, I've been there, where I have plays drawn up that I know are going to work, except my guy got pushed back 4 yards into the backfield because his bitch ass didn't get off the ball fast enough, and that defensive lineman just ate his lunch. And that's what happened all game. He just kept throwing up his hands as this was a freaking perfect play, except this lazy bastard wouldn't block this guy. That's what was happening. He didn't know what to do because he was just like, their guys are kicking my guys' ass, and there's nothing I can do about it. And he just gave up.
Was out of shape,
sort of. Not really, but he
was so out of shape, dude. He couldn't even.
He's done.
He couldn't even run around.
He's not a star anymore.
He's done.
He's just an average.
He just wants to come back to break Rice's record. That's it.
He will be back.
I mean, he's allowed to, But.
He will be back next year. There's no doubt. He came out and he said at the end of the game, people were asking, and I remember one reporter asked him, are you done? He says, I'll be back next year. I'll be back training camp in the offseason. So he expects to come back. And Taylor Swift already came out and said, I'm not going to stop my man if he wants to continue playing. So obviously his plan is to go back and try to win another one. They've had a lot of success, and it's about time that the NFL and a team like the Philadelphia Eagles, completely slam them on the head. We remember a couple of years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, when this happened to them in the fourth quarter, when Patrick Mahomes, quote unquote, claimed that he had an hurt ankle and he was running all over the field. Now it was Jalen Hurts' turn. Finally, Jalen Hurts stuck it up their ass. And boy, did he stick it up their ass. Honestly, I don't know if Jalen Hurts was the MVP. I think the defense was the MVP. And like I said, what the defense completely did to Patrick Mahomes. But like I said, if you could choose a coordinator or a coach, it's Vic Fangio. The game plan on Patrick Mahomes and how just completely out of sync Patrick Mahomes was throughout the game. And like you said, Owen, I'll say it again. They should have run the ball. They should have given it to Pacheco. When Pacheco did get the ball, he was getting 6. He was getting 5. He was getting yardage. It wasn't like they were losing yards. Even Saquon Barkley, when he was running the ball, he wasn't getting like 6 or 7 a clip. He was getting 3, 2.5, but he was still getting enough where it would set them up for the pass. If you keep them honest, it opens up the field for the other guys. They just didn't do it. And I don't know what the game plan was. You had 2 weeks to plan for the Eagles, and you completely got torched by a team that has a coach that nobody likes. Throughout the offseason and throughout the season, everybody was saying he doesn't belong there. He should have been fired. He got out coached by that guy. And by the way, that guy is going to get a nice big contract next year when he becomes a free agent.
Maybe Hassan Reddick was the problem the whole time.
It was, it was so
when we
fun.
interviewed Sean O'Hara on Radio Row, former Giants center, he said that Andy Reid cannot be outcoached by Sirianni.
He was wrong.
It seems like he may have been wrong. I don't. It's hard to say because it's not like Sirianni had all that much to do when his guys were just overwhelming them in the backfield every single play. Almost anybody can coach a game where your guys are kicking their ass.
Fish.
Look, I'm just gonna say,
he's the coach. He's the coach. So you're going to give Andy Reid all the credit when they're doing it defensively and offensively?
I already said that Reid screwed up really badly in this game. I was just saying that he didn't run the ball. He got away, like you said, we all agreeing he got away from the run. But the biggest thing that he did is he didn't try any tempo. He didn't try any for sustained tempo at least, right? He didn't try to do that. And he didn't change the platform, as they say, or roll him out or get him over a different spot.
Well, the Chiefs are in real trouble. The Chiefs are in real trouble going forward. Think about it. They need a left tackle. They need a running back. McDuffie's contract's up, so they're gonna have to pay him. I bet their chances of missing the playoff next year are just as great as going back to a Super Bowl.
And it's interesting, and I want to say this, Owen. If you remember in the third quarter, this is how I know Nick Sirianni outmatched Andy Reid. Remember when A.J. Brown came off the field and he was yelling at Nick Sirianni because he didn't put him in the right position to catch that ball, and then the next time around he put A.J. Brown in the right position and had Jalen Hurts throw him the ball and he got a touchdown. Do you remember that? That tells me that he was on the same page as Jalen Hurts, and Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid were not on the same page. I mean, watch it. I mean, I saw it for what it was. It was, dude, I'm telling you right now, that was probably the best coaching job against an Andy Reid team I have ever seen. I have never seen Andy Reid get so flabbergasted. Even remember when he was coaching the Philadelphia Eagles and he played the Patriots in the Super Bowl and the Patriots beat him in the fourth quarter. Even that game, it was back and forth. It was very close. Terrell Owens was up and down the field. He had a good game. They ran the ball pretty well. Andy Reid had a good game plan against a good Bill Belichick defense. And it was a very close game, if you remember. I have never seen Andy Reid completely get out of sync throughout a whole football game. From the first quarter to the fourth quarter, he had no idea. He had no answer for Vic Fangio. He had no answer for Nick Sirianni. I mean, it was just an absolute Italian slaughter. That's what it was. It was an absolute Italian slaughter.
But I think everybody it was all building up to this moment throughout the whole regular season. Everybody said the Chiefs, hey, they're getting away with it. They're getting away with it. Their left tackle had always been a problem all season. They didn't run the ball as effectively, and Pacheco was out. They said they need a running back. Their receivers aren't great. They're going to try Worthy. He panned out sometimes, panned out didn't. All their flaws just happened to come out in the Super Bowl, and the Eagles made them look like they've never played football before. But it was happening slowly all season. The Eagles are really talented, and every minuscule thing they took advantage of.
Boy, did they ever. Oh, my God. It was so fun to watch. I had smiles on my face. As a matter of fact, I was so happy I actually watched the halftime show. So for all those people that said, did you watch Kendrick Lamar? And by the way, it wasn't that bad of a halftime show. By the way, I saw my friend Mustard. He was there. He told me he was not
on
going
stage.
to be. Yeah, he told me he wasn't going to be there. I was texting back and forth to him, and he said, I'm not there. I'm right now doing something with Drake. And then all of a sudden, he reappears in the middle of
he's doing something with Drake, all right. It was destroying the rest of Drake's life. Oh my God. We'll talk about it when we get to What's That Smell.
You know what's crazy? Him and Drake are very close, and so is him and Kendrick. That's the crazy thing. He's in between that beef. So, and that's a whole nother story. But nevertheless, it was just, I don't know. Maybe he really was lying to me. I don't know. But maybe he wasn't supposed to tell me. But it was fun to watch. It was fun to watch. It really was. It was exciting to see something. And we were there, and a lot of people were questioning the Eagles. We had Jason Avant, and Jason Avant was so sure the Eagles were going to beat the hell out of the Chiefs. He was so sure of it. And boy, was he right. In yesterday's game versus the Grizzlies, Kevin Durant became the 8th player in NBA history to reach 30,000 career points. Well, besides his Twitter account or his X accounts, he could go down as one of the greatest offensive players we've ever seen. I like Kevin Durant as a player. I can't lie that there's a lot of special things about him that really stands out. He's long. He can shoot the three. And when he came into the league, coming from Texas and getting drafted by Oklahoma, he really was that draft pick that put Oklahoma in a very good position. And as they went after that, they had Russell Westbrook, and they drafted James Harden, and they built a great organization, and they built around that organization for many, many years until all 3 players decided to part ways with the organization. OKC, if you look at their where they were as a franchise when they came into the league and what they are now, they only had like 4 really bad seasons as a franchise that was a new franchise. They've only been in the NBA for what? I think it's like 15.
Yeah, 2008, I think, was their first year.
I think it was 15 years, 16 years they've been in the NBA. They've only, at the 15, 16 years they've been in the NBA, they've had maybe 4 bad seasons. Every other year, it's a smart organization and an organization that really built around superstars. You look at, obviously, Russell Westbrook and then James Harden. All these guys became superstars. They're all Hall of Famers. Now look at what they have right now. They have Alexander, Williams, and they have all these different young players that they're going to build their organization around until they decide to part ways with the organization. They have not won a championship. That's the only problem with OKC. They've never gotten over the hump. They've been to what? 2 finals with James Harden and Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant, and they obviously played Miami, and I think the other team was...
No, I think they only played in 1.
Oh, was it 1? Okay.
Yeah, they lost a couple times in the West Finals to the Spurs.
Okay, so they've been to 1 final, and James Harden was the 6th man, and he was one of the better 6th men of the league before he was traded to the Houston Rockets, which was a surprise. Another trade that nobody expected, but he didn't want to be there anymore. He wanted to be the guy. I think with Kevin Durant, the only problem that I look at Kevin Durant when he retires is what he has done off the court. I don't like what he's done as far as what I've seen after, when you're trying to compare these guys to the greatest of all time. Michael Jordan was a quiet guy. He didn't go around throwing political terms out there and throwing people under the bus. Kevin Durant has done that. Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant, after the time that they were together, they went after each other and threw each other under the bus. Michael Jordan never did it. Scottie Pippen never did, even though Scottie and Michael never liked each other.
They didn't have social media, though, so that's a completely different thing.
Yeah, but now they do. And even with Scottie Pippen throwing Michael Jordan under the bus and saying that they don't really talk anymore, you don't see Scottie Pippen throwing, Michael Jordan under the bus, and you don't see Michael Jordan doing the same with him. they do have social media, and they don't do it.
No love
But-
for MySpace, Joba.
No, and I understand. Look at Gary Payton. Look at Gary Payton and Sean Kemp. Sean Kemp has been in trouble with the law since he's left the NBA. Do you see Sean Kemp throwing, Gary Payton under the bus? Those guys really didn't like each other when they were playing. And one of the reasons why is Gary Payton didn't get the respect of the organization until Sean Kemp's career was over. Everybody says, well, Gary Payton was always great. Yeah, he was a good player. He didn't become great until Sean Kemp's career over there with the Supersonics was over. So the problem right now with the NBA is there's too many superstars. You have Steph Curry, LeBron James. These guys are the old players, but they're the superstars of the league. When you go around, and I'll tell you this the truth, and Joba, you know this, in any sport, the one sport that everybody knows the big time superstars in their respectable leagues, it's basketball. Why? Because they're the most watched. They're the most follows on Instagram. We've done this before. If you look at the top 10 basketball players, I will tell you this. Out of all the superstars in all of the professional sports, I would tell you about 7 or 8 of them are more followed in basketball than any other sport. Out of the top 10 superstars in all respectable sports. That says a lot about the NBA and how it draws fans. One of the reasons why, guys like Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, LeBron James, these guys are taking the game to that next level. When Michael Jordan really took it, 174 countries? Now you have over 250 countries following the NBA and wanting to be the next Luka Doncic, or Dirk Nowitzki, or one of these guys that are coming out of Europe, or even now Wembanyama. So I love what I see when it comes to the numbers. There's no question Kevin Durant is going to go down as one of the more talented offensive players we've ever seen come out of the NBA. The only problem with Kevin Durant that he's going to be compared to some of the other guys from the 90s and the early 2000s and even the 70s is the problem that he has on and off the court and getting along with players on the court. That's the only thing that I can really point out at Kevin Durant that is a big problem. And by the way, to you, Mr. Owen, the best player of your franchise or your Golden State Warriors, your Steph Curry Golden State Warriors when Kevin Durant was there, Kevin Durant was the best player by far. There's no argument to it. But Kevin Durant can't do it on his own, and he's proven that. He cannot win on his own.
Without Steph Curry, yeah. Leading him and
I'm
taking
sorry?
big shots. I said without Steph Curry leading him and taking the big shots.
Taking the big shots. Get out of here.
Hey, Fish, pull up that highlight again where KD passes the ball to Steph Curry for a game winner, and he's double teamed.
Stop.
And KD sitting alone.
Lost your mind.
Steph hits it. Yeah, that's because Steph was the main guy.
One game.
Steph was the
One
main
game. No, he
guy.
wasn't. Kevin Durant is old. First of all, Kevin Durant is older than Steph Curry. That's one. He's been in a league longer than Steph Curry. That's two. And number three, Kevin Durant doesn't need to do that anymore.
He had to
He's
ride.
done his
He had to ride Superman's cape.
work. Stop your crap. Stop it. You're going to tell me Steph Curry was a better player than Kevin Durant? You're on drugs. You're smoking
I
something.
didn't say he was a better player. I just said I said he led them to championships. Steph won without KD. KD never won without Steph.
Steph Curry's
Same age, Errol.
Steph Curry's only 6 months older than KD.
But Kevin Durant was in the league before Steph Curry. He was in the league.
That's true.
before
He
Steph
was the
Curry.
last supersonic. You realize that, right? Kevin Durant.
Yes.
He's
Yes.
the last man standing from those teams all the way back in the day, and that's how long they've been in Oklahoma City. And you're right, they've been mostly successful because they drafted Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, and James Harden, and now they have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. They got Chet if he ever gains some weight.
I hate when you smile. I see bad going through those eyes. I see bad. So what are you smirking about?
No, it's just funny that KD had to use Steph, and you're trying to call me
Stop.
out.
Who was the MVP? Well, hold on one second.
That's
Who was
fine.
the MVP of those playoff teams?
That's
was?
fine. But has KD won without Steph?
Stop.
Has Steph won without KD?
Has Steph
Okay.
won without
Point
Klay
proven.
Thompson?
It's
Has
conversation
Steph won
over.
without Klay Thompson? Yes or no?
I mean, what's that matter? That's not what we're talking about.
That's what I am
Klay
talking.
Thompson's not
Have they
needed.
won without Steve Kerr?
Yeah,
His leadership.
Steph's won without Kevin Durant.
Do not do that. That Mark Jackson would have won those teams. The fact that what they did to Mark Jackson was despicable.
They blackballed him.
I agree.
They
I
did.
agree.
They absolutely blackballed him because they didn't like his personality and what he does on and off the court. And by the way, he does some stupid things, Mark Jackson. I will say that. But Mark Jackson is one of the more respectable coaches or even personalities I have ever met on and off the basketball court. He's such a nice guy.
So I asked the question to you guys. I have it on the graphic. Where do you think Kevin Durant ranks all time? If he's the 8th person to get to 30,000 points, are we talking about him as a top 10 player all time, top 15, top 20, or is Steph Curry ahead of him because of championships?
Steph Curry
That's
is not
the real
ahead of
question.
Kevin Durant. He's not ahead of Kevin Durant. That's ridiculous. That's a ridiculous thing. Go ahead and make that face, Owen. He's not. He's not better than Kevin Durant.
I'm looking at a list from The Athletic from a year and a half ago, and they are very close to each other.
I don't care.
They have Durant at 13.
And there's
all
only
time,
a year difference. There's only a year difference.
and Curry 30. Curry 15 of all time. So I think it's a real question. I mean, obviously those teams are great. They had 2 of the top 15 players of all time on it, and Clay in his prime, and Draymond before he lost his mind. Well, maybe not. But
who's the
still
better
there.
two-way player? Steph Curry or Kevin Durant?
Oh, 100% Kevin Durant.
Okay. All right. Is Kevin Durant known as just a dominant three-point shooter, or is Kevin Durant an all-around great player?
Kevin Durant could be an all-around great player, but he still had to use Steph Curry. So doesn't that make Steph Curry better than him?
Stop it.
And he has
First of all, who is going
he has like 5 more
to the
years on
Hamptons? Who is going to the Hamptons and begging to go over there to go?
Would you not want KD to come to your team? That's not. I wouldn't say that's begging. I'm saying that's smart.
If Steph Curry really thought he could do it on his own, then he should have just left Kevin Durant out of it. No,
he did.
Who was the MVP of that team? Andre Iguodala. It was not Steph Curry.
That was Rob. Steph Curry deserves that.
Stop. He averaged what? 17, 18 points in that series? Stop it. You lost your mind. You're absolutely lost your mind. Yeah,
he has like 5 more years on Steph because the first 3 years, Steph didn't even play in the NBA because of his ankles, all that stuff that was going down.
I know all about Steph Curry, Davidson. I know all about his ankles.
Believe it or not, there was a time he actually liked Steph Curry.
Yes, there was. Until,
Was that before this?
No, that was before
he took a
Night.
That was before he took a dump on the.
Oh, the shimmy.
The shimmy. That was before that.
Errol, you do that just like Steph. That was exactly the way he does it.
I'm a little bit bigger than Steph, so I don't know if it looks right. You know?
It was also the time
I got pecs. Steph's got a flat chest. You know.
It was also a time when
I got man boobs.
It was the first year of my network, and we had a fake Warriors fan.
Joba, you know all about man boobs.
Mine are good.
Mine are good too. They're firm. You can grab
They're
them.
solid.
Definitely solid. I mean, Fish, you saw me with my shirt off.
Unfortunately,
I'm losing my mind tonight. It's.
I'm just glad I didn't have to. When we were away, we didn't have to split the room because between you and Tommy Scoops, you guys were snoring so loud, could have woke up, everyone in freaking New Orleans. That was crazy.
Hey, Errol.
Speedy, how'd you make it through the night? Oh yeah, Speedy didn't sleep.
I see what Manny's putting up. So.
Yeah, look at that.
Yeah, that doesn't mean anything.
Robbed.
That doesn't. Stop it, Rob.
Oh, so that's a good stat right there. Manny, our intern, says Steph averaged 26, 5, and 6 in the 2015 finals. Iggy was 16, 6, and 4, but if you remember, played this most stifling defense.
He's giving up
40
points
the second greatest player of all time.
He's
you're going to get LeBron. Stifling defense.
Stop with your Steph Curry
Help
crap.
defense.
I can't sit here and listen to this garbage every single time we talk about basketball.
You brought it to me. I didn't
love fest to this MO.
This is my fault. I brought it up.
Listen. He called me out directly. I think he's a great player. He's underrated.
He's a great three-pointer, the best we've ever seen.
Free throw shooter. He's a good driver of the basketball.
Under pressure. Do you think he's the greatest under pressure three-point shooter we've ever seen?
No.
Okay, good. I was about to say
Robert Horry.
No.
I would say Reggie Miller. Yeah.
Reggie Miller. That's who it was. Robert Horry. Robert Horry played on great teams. That's why he's got what?
Big shot Rob.
Yeah, big shot Rob.
Yeah, the only thing he shoots. He definitely doesn't shoot blanks if you go look at his kids. That's for sure. He's got 9 rings, 1 for each of them.
He
Anyways.
doesn't have Sean Kemp kids though.
No. Sean has kids in different countries and different platforms. I don't even think Sean Kemp knows how many kids he has.
Oh, so Manny also has the LeBron on Iggy stats. LeBron averaged 36, 13, and 8 on Iggy in that. But Iggy gets the MVP for his stifling defense on LeBron. Interesting.
Guess what? Listen, Manny, you want to make love to Steph Curry, by all means, you can do so. I'm not going to. I am not going to get on my hands and knees and give Steph Curry, oh, we love you. I will love you. I will sign my autograph, sign my jersey. I'd be like, dude, take that golf club and shove it where the sun doesn't shine. Okay? That's all.
Are you willing to say Kevin Durant's top 10 all time, though?
No, he's not. And either is.
So where would you put him?
Top 20. Top 20.
Top 20.
I put Steph Curry. What did I put Steph Curry, Speedy? Was it top 25, top 20?
I think you said 20.
20. I think I put him at 20. So I put Kevin Durant. Obviously, Kobe's better than both of those guys. Yeah.
Kobe,
I would put
Duncan
Kevin Durant. I put Kobe at 15 or 16. That's where I put Kobe.
I think you said 16 for Kobe.
Yeah,
I remember that.
So I would say Kevin Durant 17. Dude, it's hard to
You
predict
think
when
they're
you
that
even
close? You
compare.
think Kobe and Durant are that close?
They're very close. I'm going to tell you why. Obviously, Kobe won a significant amount of championships, but Kobe didn't do it himself, and nobody does it himself. But when I look at Kobe is a replica of Michael Jordan. I don't know who we can compare Kevin Durant to. You know what I mean? Kevin Durant is a unique individual. I don't know if we'll ever see. Now, I say Cooper Flagg is the closest thing that I've seen to Kevin Durant. I said it when he was in 8th grade. I said, this guy reminds me of a young Kevin Durant. We'll see what he does in the NBA. Kevin Durant, when he came to the NBA, he wasn't the greatest three-point shooter. In Texas, he was good. He wasn't great. He became a great three-point shooter when he came to the NBA. I got to see Cooper Flagg do the same thing. What are you laughing about over there? What are you giggling?
I think Reno Johnny's wanted to join the beef of you saying that he's that high.
You can put Reno Johnny on. Go ahead.
You know, of all your opinions, Kobe Bryant is not number 16 all time.
He is.
No, he's not. He's a surefire top 10.
He's not.
He's not. He is. Like,
he's a replica. No, so you're telling me.
I don't even need to argue for it. Like, he is a you might be the only person in.
No, I'm not. Actually, I'm not. Actually, I'm not.
That's a terrible take. He's a top 10.
That's not a terrible take. No, he's not.
And we've seen KD before. I mean, people forget Dirk Nowitzki was the original big man that stretched the floor, could shoot threes. He's always been a shooter since he got in the league. People forget about Dirk because he was an international player, but Dirk, literally, KD does what Dirk did.
No, he doesn't.
Yeah, absolutely. Shoots,
no, he doesn't.
He stretches the floor as a four.
He does not.
He's more defensively than Dirk was, I would say, but pretty
Johnny,
good point.
I love you, man. Johnny, you're a basketball guy, and I'm a basketball guy, too. You can't honestly tell me, when you sit here and you're trying to compare Dirk Nowitzki to Kevin Durant, they're two different players. They are. They're two different players. I
think when you take a player defensively, I'm talking about when you take a player on offense, the ability to stretch the floor as a big man.
Yeah,
it's Dirk Nowitzki. And first off, Dirk Nowitzki is better than Kevin Durant, in my opinion, anyway, because Dirk Nowitzki did win a title by himself.
He won. No, he did not.
Absolutely.
The best player on that team was Barrera. It was Barrera was the best player on that roster in that run.
Absolutely.
Stop it. Stop it. Why are they making
Dirk Nowitzki beat LeBron James?
That get you, bro. You're going to sit here and tell me right now that he was the best player in that going into the finals. You're going to tell me that he was better than Barrera? You're going to tell me?
You're not going to sit there and tell
me. Stop it. Go back. Go back, buddy.
JJ Barrera, first off, wouldn't get playing time on any other team. He just fit into that system, and he played really well in his role.
Really well or great?
The same thing. You're not going to sit there and tell me he was the best player on the court.
He was playing at a top game. What are you talking about? You're going to tell me
he had a great series, but you're not going to sit there and tell me that he was the best player on the court.
He was. He was in the Western Conference Finals. Who hit the big shots? Was it Dirk Nowitzki or Barrera? Please tell me.
So Again, you're going with who hits the big shots to be the best player, and that's not the case.
I'm just saying, who is the best?
I already said my case. LeBron James has how many rings? And if he doesn't have a huge shot from Ray Allen, a huge shot from Anthony Davis, a huge shot from Kyrie, how many rings does he have? Now, you're not going to sit there and tell me that Ray Allen was the best player in the series when they won against the Spurs. No, LeBron James was. You're not so that you can't take a big shot and be like, oh, they had the bigger shots. They're the best player on the court. No, that's not the way that works. Ray Allen hit a huge shot, but he was not the best player on the court.
Yeah, he stepped outside. He stepped out of bounds. If you remember.
But they counted as his first fan. It was gut-wrenching. But he was not the best player on the court.
No, don't stop with this crap. You're going to go back, and we could go back to that Miami series when the obviously the Dallas Mavericks went to the finals and they won and they beat. That was the first year where LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, and Chris Bosh banded together. And they went on this glorious run, okay? And I remember it. And you're going to go out and tell me that Dirk Nowitzki throughout the playoffs was the best player on the Dallas Mavericks? That's just a ridiculous statement. The better player, the guy that hit the big shot, the guy that showed up game in and game out was Barrera. I'm not saying Barrera is better than Dirk Nowitzki. He's not. Dirk Nowitzki is one of the greatest, at his position, at the 4 position or whatever. I mean, he was 4 and 5.
He averaged 26 and won the Finals MVP. I think it's pretty clear he was the best player on the court.
They don't go to the finals without Barrera.
You could say that about so much because you can't take a big shot and be like, oh my God, they were the best player in the series. No, that's not good. Robert Horry. Talking about Robert Horry in 2005, Robert Horry was probably the reason the Spurs beat the Pistons in that game 6 or whatever. Robert Horry was not the best player in that series.
I'm gonna get
Johnny's pissed, man. Johnny's heated right now.
I'm pissed.
It's because
Wes wants in too.
Good. I
want to confirm I heard Errol's take correctly. Kobe is not top 10, but he's top 20, and KD is top 10.
No. KD is 17 on my list.
Right behind
Kobe. But you called
Kobe at 16.
And I have Kobe at 16, yes. There's
right behind JJ Barea.
Okay, listen. I'm going to explain why. I look at guys that change and revolutionize the game at their position at the time of their decade they were at the top of their game. I look at Olajuwon. Olajuwon is a top 10 player. Will Chamberlain is a top 10 player. I look at Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. He was a top 10 player. Michael Jordan, obviously, was a top. LeBron James is a top 10 player. That's just some. Tim Duncan is a top 10 player. Shaquille O'Neal, who was better than Kobe on the team, is a top 10 player. Okay, that's just some. Okay, that's coming off the head. I look at guys that transition the game at their position. Kobe Bryant is a replicated player of Michael Jordan. That's what he is.
But real quick, just to clear, you have Wilt Chamberlain as a top 10 player.
100%.
I think here's the deal with. I think, and again, it's really hard. You're going like different eras. It's so hard, right? First off, I can never. But you're telling me a guy that was on average a foot taller than everybody else on the court.
Yeah,
I'm a foot taller than everybody else on the court.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be pretty damn good. That you have to take that into account. Wilt Chamberlain played at a time.
10,000 girls. That gives him a little boost there. 10,000
played at a time when he could just stand there. He was Wembanyama against the Chinese national team. Like you have to take that into account. Who did he play against? Like that. It's hard to compare eras. It's hard. It's really hard to be like Jordan and LeBron. Who's better?
Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, all these guys are in my top 10 over.
You can't contradict yourself and say revolutionize the spot when a point guard was supposed to pass the ball, you distribute the offense, and Steph Curry revolutionized the point guard.
No, we didn't.
What?
No one was playing 5 out before Steph Curry,
What? Steph Curry changed the level of basketball at every level.
He ruined the game. He revolutionized the game.
Errol thinks it was in a bad way.
Okay. He ruined the game. Johnny, you're going to tell me shooting 35 3-pointers in a game, 40 points.
But what I'm saying is that he did revolutionize it in the terms that
I
point guards
disagree.
now have to shoot the basketball. If you're going to be a point guard in the NBA, you have to shoot. And it used to be, remember, not that long ago, Rajon Rondo won a championship being a pass-first point guard. Now, in today's NBA, Rajon Rondo probably doesn't do very well because you have to score the basketball. As a point guard, you have to do both. You have to pass, but you have to be able to shoot the basketball. Steph Curry really did that. He was the one that revolutionized that. Even like when you look at Tony Parker at the end of his career, Tony Parker had to start shooting the basketball.
I'm going to come back at it.
For the record, I agree with about 99% of what Johnny's saying, but
That's fine. I could care less.
but I have to say this. I struggle to put KD in a top 20.
Oh, I can't wait to hear this one.
Well, so you can look at skill set, you can look at statistics, you can look at all of those things, but the NBA has this very unique, intangible thing that no other sport has, where one player can elevate a team and march them through the playoffs, and KD does not have that ability. He may have all of the ability to score points and do all of the things, but everywhere he's been that's not Golden State, he has failed to elevate the team around him, and everybody they've brought in to play with him has also had a struggle to just have some form of team chemistry. That intangible is a very big deal. Kobe had it. KD did not. I would call KD top 25, but outside of Golden State, he cannot elevate a team. He was the MVP on a team that did not need him.
So you're telling me when OKC got robbed against Golden State, when Draymond Green was stepping on people's you-know-what, and by the way, that series was absolutely won by OKC. They win the NBA championship if it wasn't for that bullcrap, okay? And I think you're going to tell me right now that he can't make a team win. That's I understand. You see the background of what he did, banding together with Kyrie Irving and James Harden. I never thought that was going to work. But that OKC team,
but Phoenix is another round of proof of concept.
I never thought that would work either.
I would argue that Draymond Green has a bigger ability to bring a team together and elevate their performance. Look at how Golden State plays without them. I'm just saying that intangible is a very big deal in basketball. We watched LeBron drag a bag of donuts to the finals. He's that good. KD does not have that ability.
Wes, let me rebuttal you. But we got to get to the Let's Parlay segment. The rebuttal is Will Chamberlain, they say, didn't elevate anybody either, and he's always in everyone's top 10 because he did everything. And
I'm not
the
prepared to
argument
comment on
that he belong there. You know, I think it's really tough to rate these guys. I'm looking at lists from The Athletic from a year ago that has Kobe at 10, KD at 13, and Steph Curry at 15. Those are the guys we've been talking about primarily in this segment. I think it's a pretty good list. You can argue that the leadership role is a real thing that can strike against KD. You could say Steph never had to do it by himself, necessarily had all this talent around him and a great system. And you could say Kobe had Shaq. There's flaws on everybody. I think it's just, do you believe in the leadership? Most people think Kobe's leadership was second to none, and I think that's why he gets that edge.
Basketball, you don't need leadership. You just need talent. Facts.
And you need rest. You need rest in basketball. You can't play every night. You have to practice
load management.
I'll argue this forever. You're not going to
say
you
don't need leadership. You just in basketball.
Basketball, you don't need leadership. You just need stars. Okay, you need two superstars. It's been a proven fact for how many decades? Okay, how about those? So you're going to tell me Detroit, with the teams they had, the bad boy Detroit team, they had leadership there? They're fighting with each other a lot.
No, stop though. But that you have to understand. You have to understand. And I know we got a betting segment, and I got some stuff for Wes in that segment. But let me tell you, don't understand. Like Draymond Green, do you know why he's a leader? Because when he does his stupid crap and he gets when he does something like that, it gets the crowd riled up. It gets his teammates riled up. And for whatever reason, just his behavior in that manner, he knows his team has his back. The fans are wild. And all of a sudden, when they had Clay and Steph, and all of a sudden they went a 12-0 run, all because Draymond decided to get a hard foul and a technical. Like that, to me, that like you can be a leader in different ways.
Leadership comes in so many ways. Quiet ones, loud
Yeah,
ones.
like
I'm gonna
Tim
hurt you
Duncan
ones.
didn't get. There was a video of Tim Duncan and Tony Parker's going to the ref to argue, and you just see Tim Duncan walk, and he just grabs Tony Parker's jersey, doesn't say a word, and walks back to the bench. That's a leader. Like, you can do it different ways.
Do not compare Steph Curry or any of those guys that you mentioned to the leadership of Tim Duncan. Tim Duncan was the ultimate leader, but he didn't need to lead. That team, all he had to do was put the team on his back, and that's all he needed to friggin' do. And then he had the players around him that can shoot open threes. The guy was just an absolute defensive, talent, and he could bank anywhere on the court as well. I disagree. I don't. In basketball, out of all the sports, you don't need team leadership to win a championship. I'm sorry, you don't. I mean, look who won the championship last year, the Celtics. You think they have a lot of leadership over there? Give me a break. There is no leader. You have Jaylen Brown.
It's their coach, though. It's their coach.
Oh, you're going to tell me you're going to sit there that you?
He's a weirdo, and they like it. I don't know what's up with that coach, but he's certainly one of the stranger guys in the league, and he seems to get them really riled up, and that's a really good team. The only problem that I see with leadership as being the crux of all this, there's guys, like we said earlier, Andre Iguodala was a great leader as well. And you're not going to put him in that same category. You can have the veterans be your leader when you're younger, and when you're not as good, you could be the leader to a younger group of veterans like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was in his later years, where he took second fiddle to Magic. I think you have to understand, like, the greatness, it's having that full spectrum of a career where you can really kind of hit all facets of it, where you're being influenced and you're just so talented and athletic when you're younger. And then when you can use that wise ability to take care of, like little like traps that they're doing in the defense, you just know how to beat everything and you can help your younger guys. I think it's not just like a leadership thing. I think it's just being able to encompass all parts of the game throughout your career, like Kareem did.